Hello, everybody. Hi. It's me, Chrysta. I'm back on Synchronysta here on the Akashic Academy. I'm very excited to be here with everybody again today on this Saturday. I hope everybody had a lovely and synchronistic week. I can't wait to hear what synchronicities everybody had this week and what we co-created. My name, again, is Chrysta Higgenbotham, and I am a pain catalyst consultant. And I help people discover the catalyst for the manifestation of their emotional and physical pain. And I help them rid that from their body. And it's something I'm very passionate about doing. So today we're going to talk about perspective and how perspective impacts our life and how we write our own reality based on our perspective. So it looks like we have some people coming in. Hi, Cindy. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Hi, Christy. Hi. Hi, Ren. Hi, Ren. And Melanie. Hi, Melanie. And Diana. Hi, Diana. Thanks so much for coming today. Did y'all have any synchronistic events that you wanted to share from this last week? I have a couple that I was writing down right before we got on. So I saw eagles a couple times this week, and one of them was swooping very, very low in a field, and I thought that was so beautiful. And then I also saw a bunch of dragonflies. Definitely loving seeing the dragonflies as the summer cools down. It's really nice and beautiful. Oh, tons. Love to all here today. Tons of QQ. You saw tons of QQ. That's interesting. I wonder what that means. I know I saw 111 instead of 1111 a lot this week, and so I have to look that up and see exactly what that represents. That's a little bit of a shift, so that's really nice to see something kind of change in our synchronicities, you know? So, okay, so today we're going to be talking about perspective. So let me pull up my notes here because I like to cheat a little bit with perspective. So what does perspective represent to you guys? I want to hear your thoughts on what perspective is and how perception changes, your reality and how you feel, that it impacts you on a daily basis. So to me, perspective represents our viewpoint or a filter that we can place over an event or a situation. Our perspective can be labeled as more of an opinion because it's definitely not based on fact, and it doesn't always represent truth. Our perspective is it's just an accumulation of our emotions at that time and in that moment, and our past experiences and how we processed those previously. And so based on those things, we put a filter over the experiences that we're having currently. And so our perspective can actually be considered, how we write the story of our own reality. It's our perspective that really changes the angle of how you feel things played out in your life. So it can be skewed, based on facts and circumstances and seeing the full picture or not seeing the full picture of a situation. And, based on our perspective, we can sometimes take actions that we later potentially regret because in retrospect, we realize that it was our perception or our perspective at that time that illustrated what we thought to be truth or to be real. So I like to use the example of the moon because we all love the moon. I'm getting all splotchy. That's how you know I'm getting nervous, guys. So the moon, we see the moon every day, right? And it's always ever changing, all the different phases of the moon. So we see full, we see waxing, we see waning, we see gibbous, we see the new moon. And to us, the moon is ever changing based on our perspective at that time because of where we are located on the earth and how the sun is being reflected off of the moon. The moon itself is never changing. It stays the same shape, the same size, the same color, and it's just changing to us. It looks ever changing to us because of our perspective, because where we are located at that moment, how we see the moon. We're not always seeing the moon in its fullness, in its entirety, even though we know that it's there. We could also perceive that the moon emits its own glow. If we didn't know that the sun was actually reflecting onto the moon and that's what we're seeing, we would think that the moon was glowing, right? That's based on our perspective at that time and how we can see and what we can see, even though we, know that may not be the full picture. So in the same way in our lives, we could have experiences that take place and we see them as waxing or waning or gibbous without fully understanding the entireness that represents that situation. And we could even label that as a negative experience because our perception at that time is that it's a negative experience. We may react in a negative way because we feel like something is happening to us, or we're being victimized, or we can't control what's taking place. Like for another example would be driving in the car. My car is really boxy, so I have a lot of blind spots, and so I don't always, can't see everything all the time. And you have to keep that in mind when you're driving. That's why we have mirrors, because we know that our perspective doesn't encompass the entire picture. Um, and also, how often do we realize in retrospect that something that we at the time considered negative, or a struggle, or a difficult or traumatic event, and then later we look at it in retrospect and we were like, wow, that was a blessing in disguise. Like, thank God that happened, and so I had to take this action, and then this door opened as a result of that. And I mean, we all have those experiences, right, where we can look back and say, wow, that sucked in that moment, but I grew as a person because of it. It was a blessing in disguise. And at that moment, I could have potentially done this and that and this differently had I had known, the full picture. But because of my perspective at that time, I may not have handled it well, but now I know I can. Um, Sometimes in these experiences where we consider them or label them as negative, just labeling them as negative can kind of plummet us more into emotional turmoil. And that what that does is it perpetuates that cycle of victimhood, or of feeling like everything is happening to you that's bad. You know what I'm saying? And so in those moments, we have the opportunity to actually choose to like honor the emotions that are coming up, honor them definitely, and but recognize the perspective that you're having, and maybe even try to take a step back. Oh, looks like I have a bunch of comments that I'm missing. I have to scroll down, guys. Okay, I see 1111 and 20s. Um, oh, typo for the QQ. Okay, thanks, Ren. Oh, a goldfinch in my yard a couple nights ago. That's so beautiful. I love that. A raven. Oh, I love that we're seeing more ravens. Hi, Maida. Hi, Judy. Hi, Lee. Love from the Caribbean. Thanks. Hi, Jorge. Dragonfly twice this week. Awesome. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Gretchen. Hi, Diane. Oh, I saw Diana. New moon today. Oh, perfect. Perfect that I'm talking about the moon phases. So new moon, doesn't that mean we can't even see the moon today? But we still know it's there, right? Even though our perspective would lead us to assume it's gone and that the moon bailed on us. Love my moon analogy. Thank you, Amanda. Why are you getting nervous? I know, I'm such a nerd. I get a little camera shy. And it's weird staring at my own face kind of when I'm when I'm doing this. So, but I'm getting in my flow, and I really appreciate you guys showing me so much love and helping me get my sea legs and stuff in this space. Hi, Rosemary. Hi. Okay, so perspective, like I was saying, where was I at? So, the moon is a great example. There's multiple phases. Every day we see actually a different perspective of the moon, based on our viewpoint and everything like that. We know that it's not half gone, but we only see half of it half the time. And in the same way, life can only show us half of the real picture. And we can sometimes take action based on a perspective thinking that it's solid or unmoved, or it's truth or fact or real. And then later realize that, oh, maybe I overreacted. Now that I can see that in retrospect, this good came out of this situation. I mean, how many of us have had that scenario in our life before where we were like, wow, I can't believe that at that moment I felt like my world was crumbling down, and now everything happens for a reason, and this was a blessing in disguise in the truest sense. And that's why they say it's in disguise, right? Because it's a blessing. It's not going to be like, here I come, la la la. That's the problem. So we have to like recognize those moments, where our perspective might be skewed, and where again we can choose to identify with feeling anxious or nervous about something, or victimized by something, or we can take a step back and say, am I seeing this whole picture? I don't have to identify with these feelings right now. I don't have to take action based on my perception of a negative experience right now. What I can do is I can choose to walk away, or wait until I can see a better picture. We can also choose to say, I'm not victimized by this situation. I have full control over my reality, and I'm going to paint my own picture. And I choose to be empowered by this situation and not victimized by it. I choose to take out of this a learning experience, and I choose to be grateful for this experience. And when you do that, you don't perpetuate the cycle of victimhood, and you can change the way that your mind and your body reacts to certain events. And we're kind of changing our own filters, right? Cleaning our filters and being more clear, and recognizing that the filter of our reality or perception at one time is not truth or fact. It is ever changing. It's not solid. It is like the moon. You see it differently every day, every moment of every day. And that doesn't mean that you have to identify with it. You can take a step back and say, how is this perspective changing my vibration? How is this perspective impacting me? And how can I choose to be empowered in this moment instead and keep my vibe up high? And how can I choose to say, yeah, this sucks right now. I'm going through a really, really hard time, but I'm choosing to use this as a lesson, and I'm choosing to be empowered by this. Whenever we're brought to a state where we are being tested by circumstance, that kind of brings us to our energetic vibration to a state of authenticity. It puts you in a place where you have to be really authentic and acknowledge those things within you, and acknowledge where your perspective is coming from. It could be an accumulation of emotions. It could be the way that you perceive something incorrectly before, and you can choose to look at it in a different way this time, and you can choose to step through it and keep moving forward, and don't use that perspective of having a negative experience as something that can hold you back. So I ask you guys today, hi Boggy, my Sifu is here. Negative thought has negative results because we base our experience on current events. Exactly, and that's what perpetuates it. So, and the more that you put that vibe out there, thank you, Kirath, the more that you're going to just pull it back in. And then the more that you can change your perspective, or identify when you have a perspective that may not be fully truth, and you can move that. You're allowed to change your mind on something. That's the beauty, is we're allowed to just say, I'm not going to identify with that anymore. I'm going to choose to look at it from a different perspective. And when we do that, we really are giving ourselves a better chance at success, and not, again, perpetuating that cycle. Hi Dottie. Love the process. Thank you for your advice. I appreciate it. Thank you, Justin. But yeah, this is something that hits home for me, because I've definitely gone through a process of a lot of reflection, and I realized that part of the reason why I was in the state that I was in for many years is because of my perspective. I perceived myself as being sick, even, or having a low immune system, or being too sensitive, and all of those things, I perceived them as a fault and not a strength. And so when you change those things to a strength, and I say, I'm not sick, and I don't have these immune issues. What I have is the ability to put more vitamins in my body and see my body respond and say thank you, and see my body as something that is sensitive, because my empathy is a gift. And by being empathetic, I help other people process their emotions as well. And that was a huge shift in me when I came to the realization that my perspective was writing my reality, was writing my story. And you can choose in any moment. It doesn't matter if you make a bad decision, because at that moment you're emotionally exasperated and you can't process fully, but you always have another opportunity to choose again, and to next time to take a step back and say, how is my perspective potentially creating this chaos right now inside of me, and how can I change my perspective to see this as a lesson, and to see this as something I'm going to grow from, and I'm going to become empowered from. So hi Caitlin, hi beautiful. Let's see. I may release all that no longer is benefiting me. Yes, Diana, that's beautiful. Exactly. And that's part of the process, is releasing the idea that you have to identify with your perspective, or releasing the idea that you have to identify with your emotions, or identify with any kind of labeling, because we are ever changing, just like the moon phases. We are still this solid, beautiful thing, and we can look, all different ways depending on where we are at in life. And that's okay. It's part of going through the process, but it's also about, being mindful and slowly getting better at this process and recognizing it and changing our perspective to where we can be grateful in certain scenarios, like a scenario where we may have previously felt victimized. We can say, this time I'm going to use this as an opportunity to draw a boundary with love and compassion and be empowered by this because I'm no longer a victim to it, or to my perspective that I'm a victim to it. So let's see what else we got in the comments. That the only constant in life is change. Yes, Steph, thank you. Knowing when or that we're able to step back at any given moment is a valuable lesson. Thank you, Justin. I know, again, something that I learned kind of the hard way, because I spent about 12 years of my life on pharmaceutical medication because the doctors told me that I had anxiety and depression. And once I told myself that I'm not identifying with that anymore, and I'm going to process my emotions at hour by hour basis and reflect on my perspective and my perception of reality, I was able to get off of them cold turkey. And it's been a year and a half, yay, that I feel completely empowered in every moment because I can make that choice. And I don't have to identify with anything. I can feel exacerbated one minute, but that doesn't mean that the world is against me, or that I have to take action on it. I can, that's part of a key thing too, is that when you recognize when your vibration gets kind of like out of control, or you're feeling emotional upheaval even, or emotional turmoil, instead of taking action on that, the better thing is to not. And I know that's easier said than done, but when you give yourself time to process something fully and then honor the emotions that are coming up fully, we're not pushing them down, we're honoring them. That perspective and our emotions are here to teach us and to guide us, and we should listen to that. But we ask ourselves, why is this resistance arising in me? Why is this my perspective at this time? And maybe even just wait a little bit and see if your perspective can change, or if your opinion of it can change. And then at that point, reevaluate and go from there. Wait a couple days and the moon isn't waxing anymore. It's waning, you guys. It's balsamic. I'm learning all the phases, so I feel like I can drop those like I know. Vana, is it Vana or Vana? Yes, I no longer suffer with anxiety. I'm grateful for getting knowledge about how to harness the energy frequency in my entire life. Love that. That's very beautiful. I'm so glad. It's so cool to hear that everybody is on a similar path and that we all can resonate with this, because we're such an amazing soul family here where we can create space for each other to recognize that in those moments. And then even when we are feeling down, we can reach out to each other here on the Academy, and others can come and say, hey, let me show you a different perspective. You got me over here on your side, in your corner, sending you love and sending you energy. And so we don't have to feel isolated in these moments either. We have each other, and we have our divine connection to source, and our angels and our guides that are always here, like kind of waiting for you to go, can you like change your glasses, put on the rose colored ones today, Chrysta? Here to show us synchronicities as well, so that we can take a step back and be mindful in every moment of how we're choosing to write our story. Because we want to look back and not be like, oh my gosh, remember that time happened and I was blah, blah, blah. You want to look back and be like, yeah, I had such a difficult time, but it was so great because I learned this, that, and the other thing. And thankfully I didn't react that time, because if I hadn't listened to my higher consciousness telling me like, hang on, take a step back. What if, something could have been totally different? And, everything again does happen for a reason. So it's all part of growing and stretching, and we all came here to have these experiences and to overcome this. And so we can be empowered by that as well, just knowing that we signed up for this as like mission impossible, and we can we might fall, the cord might break a couple times, but take two, right? And we can have a different perspective next time of it. So hi, Boggy. Filters are the focus what you do want. Make a big thing about the wins and turn crap into manure. That's a good one. That's a farming. I like that. Seek the lessons from the negative stuff, but as any good seafood should say, hey, what do I know? You're so silly, Boggy. No, I love that. I like that. That's another good analogy. It's It's a little different than my moon analogy, but I like it, turning crap into a manure, which, compost is what goes into the ground and gives the earth back the nutrients that we used, and then helps regrow another plant life. So that's a great example. We're constantly being reborn in a sense. When we change our perspective, we can change our entire reality, and how we process that and interpret things that are happening to us. So, oh, Jorge said he just found a feather in his room right now. Yay! Yay for synchronicities. Talking about synchronicities. How weird is that? Caitlin said, yes, girl, love our soul fam. Oh, hi, Benjamin from Denmark. Hi. We're talking about perspective today, and how it can write the story of our reality, and how our perspective can be changed, based on becoming empowered, and the idea of we don't have to identify with negative emotions that come up, and instead we can look and say, this moment right now is really stretching me and it sucks. I hate this, but I'm going to grow from this, and something good is going to come out of this. And how often do we look back in retrospect and see that we have many things in our life that are a blessing in disguise, and those are the best synchronicities, right? Are the blessings in disguise, that just pop up when you think that you're just like drowning, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, this happened for a reason. Maybe I shouldn't have identified so much with the chaos that took place for me to grow in that moment, and I should have just been sat back and thought, I can get through this. And later when we look back on it, you think, I'm so glad that I was patient with myself in that moment. I gave myself that space to process it, and to analyze it, and to reflect on it, and not necessarily take action or identify with like the cycle of victimhood, especially. So I want to ask everybody today, do you have a situation in your life that might be coming to your mind right now, or something that has happened recently, or even something that happened in the past, something that might feel like a trigger to you, or something that you have resistance to, that changes your vibration in a negative way? And maybe take a step back and ask yourself, what if I said I'm going to grow from this? Or what if I say I'm stretching as a person right now, and I would have freaked out last time, but I'm not going to freak out this time? Or what if we think about that moment and say, this trigger for me, I'm going to use this trigger to empower me next time? What if this is the universe telling me to be empowered in this moment, and to draw a boundary with love and compassion? You can do everything with love and compassion. You don't have to, respond in a sense of anxiety or angst or resistance. You can give yourself that time. So what today maybe is a trigger that makes you feel victimized, or something that you have resistance to, or something that you consider negative or not fair? And how can you today try to change your perspective on that? How is this situation in your life calling you to be more authentic, and to honor those emotions, and to try to find a way to get through the waxing and back into the waning cycle of your life? And in what ways can we change our actions in response to this perception, this perspective change? And how can we create more peace in our life, and bring more positive in, and not perpetuate any more cycles of anything? So if you want to write that down and think about that this week, or if you don't have something that's coming to you immediately right now, that's okay. Sometimes it's planting the seed, and you'll recognize something as you're continuing to go about your day. And maybe in that moment, write it down and tell yourself, I'm going to change my perspective on this going forward, and see what happens, and see how you rewrite the story of your reality. See how you can feel more gratitude in your life, because you are actively and proactively creating your perspective and writing that story for you. So let's see, Paul Boggy, look back at the past negative and so-called failures, and then see where opportunities came from. And then craft manure. If you step back, and look, you will see your downs leads to ups. So now look at your present downs and look for the signs to lead you up. Exactly, Boggy. Man, I should have just had you come on here and say that, so I didn't have to talk so much. No, I'm just kidding. Very good synopsis. I love that. That's a beautiful way to put that too. But your downs and your ups, because that's how it feels. It feels like a roller coaster sometimes, especially when we identify with those emotions and we cling to them as a solid or fact, when in actuality it's perception, which is fluid and ever changing. And we don't have to cling to it or identify with it. So that's beautiful. Yes, EFT for triggers works so well. That's a really good point, Caitlin. So if you guys haven't heard of tapping, that is something that I employ every day. And it does help. It's a really good way to change your vibration right in a moment, especially in a moment of panic or anxiety or feeling overwhelmed or emotional upheaval. And what you do is you have certain tapping points on your face and on your chest and on your back and on the top of your head, and you say mantras and affirmations to yourself. And Caitlin is very skilled in this as well, and she and I share that as something that we use because it's actually highly powerful, because the points that you're tapping are acupressure points. And so instead of going and sticking needles in your face, you could just tap on it and you'll get the same effect. And then the mantras, doing the mantras and the affirmations with that is actually like rewiring your brain. It's very effective and it's very cool. And you feel a lot lighter. You feel like a sense of almost like you're opened up and there's airflow coming through, where before there was like this stagnant energy. So, oh, Elizabeth said, I need to draw boundaries with love and compassion. Yes, something that everybody's learning in this lifetime. It's one of the biggest lessons that we all have, because that is kind of one of the first steps towards self-love. And that's something that we are all also learning, is to love ourselves enough to draw boundaries and to not perpetuate the cycle of victimhood, and to be empowered and with love and compassion. And that's what we came here to learn. So Joe, you're having a hard time feeling empowered, you can reach out to me directly. I do a free 25-minute consultation. I had to knock it down 5 minutes because I always go over 5 minutes, so it ends up being 30 anyway. And I'd love to talk with you and give you some ideas on what you could implement in your life, definitely. And sometimes just opening up a discussion about the catalyst in your life for why you're feeling that way can release a lot of it. So reach out to me. Taking responsibility is number one. That's right, Lena. We really have to realize that, yes, we don't have control over other people's actions, but we have control over the way that we respond to them, and the way that we process them, and then the way we internalize them, and then the way we write our story. So that's a great way. I've been learning to respond and not react. Yes, that's beautiful. That's a good way to put it too. Because you want to honor those emotions. We're not trying to say those emotions shouldn't be there, but there's a reason why they're there. They need to be honored and they need to be addressed. And yeah, okay. Michelle, hi Michelle. What I'm working on right now is not speaking up and running from who has hurt me. It is a struggle because I think if I'm silent, I'm allowing them to walk all over me, when in reality, it's not happening. That's my current struggle. But after I speak up, then I go within and face these emotions and grow from it. Yes, I can completely relate to that, because that's something that I felt in my life too, because I was such a giving and loving person. I did feel for a while like people were walking all over me or taking advantage of me. And that was, again, because I was not choosing necessarily the right minutes or the right moments to speak up. I was creating resentment toward myself for not doing that, or for doing it too much. And so there's an ebb and flow, and there's a balance. And yeah, it's so exciting to hear that you're growing from it, and that you can recognize that, and that you're not being walked all over, and that's the story in their perception perhaps at this time, but you can change that. So, Justin, going into my heart space when in confusing times has been and is what I've been doing lately. Good. It seems to be a great tool for getting back in vibe mode. Vibe mode? Is that what it says? Yeah, I love that. That's great, because that's really where the emotions are stemming from, is your heart space. And our heart is kind of like a hard drive of information from all of our past experiences. And so there can be emotions in there that can be triggered. And so when you go into that space and you honor those emotions, you're also tapping into like this unconditional love and the higher consciousness too. The Tai Chi, as our dear friend Boggy would say, where the two come together. And so that's a really, really effective and a really good way to honor yourself and to go through that process, Justin. So the bigger the down, the bigger the up. That's the universal law. Thanks for the reminder, Buggy. Brain hacking. I love that, Caitlin. I love your show and how you deliver. The topic today is wonderful and something I have been paying more attention to, as Steph said, learning to respond, not react. Also to breathe, breathe, breathe. Whew, that's something I need to do more of, huh? And then see how you feel or see things before you react to them. That's beautiful, Dottie. Thank you so much for that feedback. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Loving your show, Crystal Sister. Oh, thank you, Boggy. Boggy gave me a nickname, Shayting Tia Tia. Oh, I think I might be going over, so I guess I should wrap up. I appreciate everybody's insight today on your perspective, and I can't wait to hear next week how we can all co-create our perspective and change it this week. Let's hold space for each other to give ourselves that time to like process and analyze it, and then see how our perspective changes and how we can create a better reality and write our story in a more beautiful and loving and grateful way every day. So I can't wait to talk to you all next week. Sending everybody so much love, and I hope you have a blessed weekend. Love you guys. Bye.